confidence, persuasion, power. Most people hear these words and think of them as separate skills, each to be learned in isolation, like items on a checklist. You read one book for confidence, take a course for persuasion, study leadership for power, and hope they somehow fit together in the end. But Machiavelli knew better. He saw them not as disconnected abilities, but as three sides of the same blade. Sharpen one, and the others begin to cut deeper. Master all, and you hold a weapon so rare, so precise, that it reshapes the world around you without brute force. It's tempting to imagine confidence as a feeling, something you get after enough wins, enough approval, enough luck. Persuasion, people think, is about clever words or charisma and power. That's for politicians, CEOs, and people born into the right families. But this is the illusion that keeps you weak. Machiavelli's genius was seeing that none of these are gifts. They are performances, scripts, masks you put on until they fuse to your skin. Confidence is not about how you feel. It's about how others feel when they look at you. Persuasion is not about convincing people. It's about making them believe they convinced themselves. And power is not about domination. It's about building such control over perception that people follow you willingly, even when it costs them. Think about the people who walk into a room and shift the air. They may not be the richest, the tallest, or the most beautiful, but conversations pause, heads turn, and for a moment, every eye takes inventory. Why? Because the room senses something rare. The person who does not need it, they don't seek the crowd's approval. The crowd seeks theirs. That is not an accident. It is an engineered reality. Here's the truth. The modern world is built on the same ancient currents of human nature that Machiavelli studied centuries ago. We still follow those who seem rare. We still obey those who make us feel understood. We still respect those who can remain calm when the rest of us are drowning. But unlike the Renaissance courts and battlefields Machiavelli wrote about, today's warfare is fought in subtler arenas, boardrooms, social circles, negotiations, digital spaces. The weapons are no longer swords and armor, but presence, narrative, and control of attention. And yet, the rules haven't changed. If you appear abundant, you become forgettable. If you appear desperate, you become replaceable. But if you appear scarce, in your time, your attention, your approval, people value you like treasure. This is why Machiavelli advised leaders to be feared or admired, but never ignored. Indifference is the death of influence. Understand this. In the eyes of others, you are either a force or you are furniture. Most people choose to be comfortable, to fit in, to avoid the discomfort of tension. But tension is the birthplace of desire. The human mind cannot stop chasing what it doesn't fully have. Machiavelli saw that seduction, whether in politics, romance, or business, is never about giving people what they want outright. It's about holding something just out of reach so they lean forward, invest, and commit themselves to you without realizing it. Confidence, persuasion, power, all work on the same lever, perception. You don't wait for the world to crown. You crown yourself and behave as if the ceremony already happened. You speak when silence has built enough weight to make people crave your words. You make decisions slowly, not because you don't know, but because you know they will wait. You listen more than you speak, not because you have nothing to say, but because the less you reveal, the more they imagine. And people always imagine bigger than the truth, the dangerous part. Once you understand how this works, you can no longer unsee it. You'll notice how the loudest people are often the weakest, how the desperate overcompensate with constant smiles, how those with no real confidence try to buy it in the form of brands, titles, and displays. You'll see that persuasion is never about the argument, but about the frame in which the argument exists. You'll see that true power doesn't announce itself. It is assumed. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, this isn't because you lack worth. It's because you haven't yet controlled the story being told about you. People are always making assumptions about your value, your strength, your place in the hierarchy. Machiavelli understood if you don't write that script yourself, someone else will. And when they do, they will cast you in a role that serves them, not you. The path you're about to walk is not comfortable. It's not about becoming louder, nicer, or more agreeable. It's about removing the habits that bleed away your presence and replacing them with deliberate actions that shape perception like clay. It's about creating the rare combination of confidence that doesn't seek, persuasion that doesn't push, and power that doesn't shout. Once you see yourself as the axis around which the room turns, something shifts. The way you stand changes. The way you speak changes. The way you allow others to speak to you changes. And slowly, the world around you begins to respond differently. Because confidence, persuasion, and power are not waiting for you to deserve them, they're waiting for you to take them. Why this matters more than you think: if you fail to master these three forces, confidence, persuasion, and power, you will spend your life orbiting other people's gravity. You will play roles in stories you didn't write. You will fight battles that don't serve you. And every decision you make will be shaped by someone else's frame. That is the unspoken cost of neglecting these skills. You might think you can still win by being talented, hardworking, or even good-hearted. But history is filled with people who had all three and still ended up forgotten or used. Why? Because the world doesn't organize itself around merit. It organizes itself around perception. Machiavelli saw this clearly. The one who defines the perception defines reality. If you don't project confidence, the competent will outrank you. If you don't know how to persuade, the less capable will get chosen over you. If you don't command power, you'll work twice as hard for half the return. And you'll wonder why the world seems tilted against you, when in truth, you tilted it yourself by refusing to take control. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Look closely and you'll see it everywhere. The employee who does all the work but gets none of the credit because someone else presents the idea better. The man or woman endlessly friends own not because they lack value, but because they never built the mystery that creates desire. The leader who loses influence the moment they try to explain themselves too much, showing the insecurity they swore they didn't have. Without these skills, you don't just risk losing opportunities, you risk losing your own identity. People will project their own ideas of who you are onto you, and you'll start playing along. You'll agree to the terms, lower your voice, change your tone, compromise your boundaries. Not because you chose to, but because you didn't know the alternative. And the worst part, once people lock you into a role of weakness, they rarely let you out. In their eyes, you've been defined, the quiet one, the desperate one, the one who can be interrupted, the one who apologizes first. You become predictable, and in the world of influence, predictability is a slow death. This is why Machiavelli was feared and respected in equal measure. He knew that the foundation of control isn't force, it's shaping the field before the battle begins. If you can position yourself in people's minds as rare, as valuable, as slightly beyond reach, the game is won before the first word is spoken. Think about the alternative. Without control over perception, every interaction is a negotiation. You start at a disadvantage. You're explaining instead of defining. You're reacting instead of leading. You're defending yourself against frames someone else set before you even arrived. That's like playing chess when your opponent has already moved half your pieces. The stakes aren't just external, they're internal. When you operate without confidence, you start believing you need permission to act. When you fail to persuade, you begin to doubt your own worth. And when you lack power, you internalize the idea that others will always be above you. These beliefs become habits. Habits become identity. And soon, you're living a smaller life than you were meant to, telling yourself stories about why that's good enough. Machiavelli would call that self-betrayal. He understood that influence is not a luxury. It's survival. Those who command it rise. Those who ignore it serve. There is no middle ground. And here's the brutal truth. The world will not give you space to figure this out at your own pace. Every day you walk into a room, a negotiation, a relationship, or an opportunity, you are being measured, often silently, often within seconds. People are deciding whether to trust you, follow you, desire you, or dismiss you. If you don't set that measurement yourself, you're gambling with outcomes you can't control. This is why so many talented, well-meaning people end up working under those they privately know are less capable. Why some lose the deal to someone with less experience but more presence. Why someone can walk into a room for the first time and instantly be treated as if they've been in charge forever. Confidence, persuasion, and power are the silent currencies of human interaction. You can be the most skilled in the room, but if you lack these currencies, you can't spend your skill where it matters. You'll be like a king who owns a fortune, but can't leave the castle gates. So the stakes are not simply about becoming more impressive. They're about reclaiming control over your life's trajectory. Without them, you will be moved like a pawn on someone else's board. With them, you start designing the board itself, and everyone else plays your game. From this moment forward, every decision you make will either strengthen or weaken these forces. Every conversation is a chance to project confidence or bleed it away. Every interaction is an opportunity to frame reality in your favor or let someone else do it for you. Every boundary you set or break shifts the balance of power in your world. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't just for princes. It was for anyone willing to see the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. And the world as it is will reward you for one thing above all, the ability to command perception so completely that others follow without needing to be told. Ignore this, and you'll keep wondering why the right people, opportunities, and respect never seem to find you. Master it, and you'll stop chasing what you want, because it will start chasing you. Seduction as strategic mystery. When most people hear the word seduction, they think of romance, charm, or physical attraction. They imagine a game of compliments, flattery, and mutual interest. Machiavelli would laugh at that. To him, seduction was not limited to love. It was the foundation of all influence. It was the art of making yourself so compelling that people lean towards you without realizing why. Seduction, in its purest form, is about gravity. You become the force that pulls others into your orbit. But here's the paradox. Gravity is strongest when it's invisible. You cannot tell someone you are irresistible. You must make them feel it. And the key to this feeling is mystery. Mystery is the oxygen of desire. It is the space between what people know about you and what they think they know. Without that space, there's nothing to chase, nothing to imagine, nothing to hunger for. When you reveal everything about yourself too soon, you kill the very thing that could make people obsessed. Machiavelli understood that the human mind is restless. It cannot stand an unanswered question. We fixate on unfinished stories, unsolved puzzles, people we can't quite define. This is why the most magnetic figures in history, leaders, lovers, revolutionaries, never showed their full hand. They gave glimpses, not explanations. They allowed others to fill in the blanks with their own imagination, and in doing so, those others made themselves complicit in the myth. So how do you use this? The first step is restraint. In conversation, reveal less than people expect. When asked about your plans, smile and say, "You'll see." When someone tries to dig into your personal life, redirect with a question about theirs. When others are oversharing in the hope of being liked, you stay measured, letting your words land with precision. This doesn't mean you become cold or silent. Mystery without warmth feels unapproachable. Mystery with warmth feels irresistible. You offer just enough to spark curiosity, a story with the ending missing, a compliment with an ambiguous edge, an expression that hints at more than it says. The second step is unpredictability. People crave novelty, but they also crave patterns. If you give them a pattern they can never quite predict, you become addictive. Sometimes you respond instantly, other times you take your time. Sometimes you're generous with attention, other times you're distant, not to play games, but to remind them that your presence is never guaranteed, and therefore always valuable. The third step is scarcity. Anything abundant becomes invisible. This is why rare gems are prized, why exclusive memberships thrive, why people want what they can't have. You create scarcity by managing your availability. Don't always say yes to invitations. Don't always answer immediately. Don't always be on. Let people feel that your time and energy are earned, not given. Machiavelli wrote that men are driven more by the fear of loss than the hope of gain. This is as true in seduction as it is in politics. If people sense that your attention could be lost, that your approval is not permanent, they will guard it, they will work for it. They will adjust themselves to keep it. A dangerous mistake is to confuse seduction with performance. Performance is exhausting, fragile, and unsustainable. Seduction, when done correctly, is effortless because it comes from discipline, not from constant display. You are not creating a character, you are creating conditions under which others reveal themselves to you. You speak less so they speak more. You hold back so they lean forward. You observe so they expose their desires, fears, and weaknesses, all while thinking they are the ones in control. This is where the spider and fly dynamic comes into play. The fly buzzes loudly, declaring itself, desperate to be noticed. It reveals everything, where it's going, what it wants, what it fears. The spider is still silent, patient. It weaves its web with care, creating an environment where the fly traps itself. In human terms, this means creating interactions where people feel safe, seen, and intrigued, but never fully satisfied. That lingering hunger is the hook. The tools are subtle. Eye contact held a second too long, then broken first. A smile that appears slowly and fades quickly. Pauses in your speech that make people wait for the next word. Compliments that carry a challenge. You're sharp. For someone who hasn't read much Machiavelli, statements that open questions. You remind me of someone, then nothing. More. People will try to decode you, to categorize you, to figure you out. Let them try. Never fully resolve the mystery. If they think they've solved you, change something. If they think they know your rhythm, alter it. Consistency in. Character is good for trust. Unpredictability in detail is good for fascination. The most seductive people manage to be both, but there's a warning here. Mystery without substance is manipulation, and it collapses under scrutiny. Your mystery must be supported by real qualities, knowledge, skill, experience, or values that justify the attention you command. Otherwise, you're a hollow figure, and once the illusion cracks, it can never be rebuilt. Machiavelli's brilliance was in understanding that seduction is not about making people fall in love with you. It's about making them invest themselves in you. When someone spends time, thought, or emotion trying to understand you, they are binding themselves to you. And once they've invested, they are less likely to walk away. This applies in every domain. In business, the client who chases you values your service more. In politics, the ally who worked to earn your trust defends you more fiercely. In relationships, the person who pursued you treasures you more than the one who stumbled upon you easily. The ultimate form of seduction is when others feel they are choosing you freely, when in reality, you have shaped the path so that their choice was inevitable. This is why restraint is so powerful, because it makes every small revelation feel like a discovery, not a transaction. Remember, desire is not built in the giving. It's built in the withholding, and once you understand how to create this tension without cruelty, you step into the rarest form of influence, the kind that doesn't need to be maintained constantly, because people maintain it for you. They think about you when you're not there. They bring your name into rooms you've never entered. They anticipate your approval before they act. At that point, you've moved beyond attraction into allegiance, and allegiance, once given willingly, is the most valuable currency in the Machiavellian playbook. Confidence as performed power. The modern world has lied to you about confidence. You've been told it's a feeling, something that appears after you've achieved enough, been praised enough, been loved enough. You've been told it comes from competence, from success, from believing in yourself. Machiavelli knew better. He understood that confidence is not internal. It is external. It is not born from feeling powerful. It is born from acting powerful. This is why some people with no greater skill or beauty than their peers can walk into a room and command attention instantly. It's not because they are different. It's because they behave differently. They have mastered the performance of confidence so convincingly that others accept it as reality. And once others accept it, you begin to believe it yourself. This is the paradox. Confidence is not the cause of power. It is the result of acting as if you already have it. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience. What you really are. Appearance, then, is the lever. If you control it, you can make others treat you as though you are powerful long before you truly feel it. And in time, that treatment hardens into truth. So how do you perform confidence? First, own space. When you enter a room, claim territory without words. Stand tall, shoulders open, chin level. Do not shrink or fold yourself to appear smaller. Sit in a way that says you belong exactly where you are. Most people unconsciously compress themselves, crossing arms, tucking in legs, lowering their head. These are the physical signals of submission. Remove them from your repertoire. Second, slow down. Fast movements betray anxiety. They say, I need to get this over with before you notice me. Slow movements project control. When you reach for your glass, do it deliberately. When you turn your head, let it happen in one smooth motion. When you speak, pause before the first word. These micro-delays force others to wait, and waiting builds tension. Tension builds authority. Third, control your voice. Confidence is heard before it is seen. Speak from your chest, not your throat. Lower your tone slightly, not in pitch alone, but in pace. Avoid the rise at the end of sentences that make statements sound like questions. And when someone interrupts you, do not speed up to finish before they take over. Slow down even more. Make the interruption feel awkward, not your response. Fourth, speak last. In any group, the first to speak is often the one seeking approval. The last to speak is the one others subconsciously look to for judgment. This does not mean you stay silent entirely. It means you let others exhaust their points, their energy, and sometimes their mistakes before you contribute. Your words will carry more weight simply because they arrive later. Fifth, refuse to explain. Nothing erodes confidence faster than too much justification. People who are secure in their choices do not drown them in explanations. They state them, and the statement stands. If someone asks why you did something, give one clear answer and stop. Let the silence after your words be part of the answer. These are the mechanics of performance, but confidence also requires an internal discipline, the ability to remain unshaken when others try to provoke you. Machiavelli observed that it is not necessary to be loved, but it is essential to be respected. And respect is lost the moment you appear rattled. This means you never show jealousy, because jealousy signals that you are competing from below. You never show desperation, because desperation signals dependence. You never show outrage, because outrage signals loss of control. And you never show unearned admiration, because admiration to freely given devalues your own approval. When challenged, you remain composed. When insulted, you let the words hang in the air, smiling faintly, as if the insult were beneath response. When praised, you receive it with stillness, as though it were expected. This doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you untouchable. People test confidence constantly, often without realizing it. They interrupt. They joke at your expense. They ignore a request. They see how quickly you bend. The moment you flinch, you confirm their suspicion that your authority was an act. But if you hold your ground, if you remain as calm as when you entered, they adjust to you instead. The most dangerous mistake you can make is waiting to feel ready before acting confident. If you wait, you will never begin because readiness is an illusion. The world rewards those who project certainty even when they are learning as they go. Machiavelli's wisdom applies here. Perception shapes reality. If you act with the posture, voice, and composure of someone who belongs, others will treat you accordingly. That treatment reinforces your self-belief, and the loop strengthens until it's no longer performance. It's identity. But let's be clear, this is not about pretending to be something you are not. It is about amplifying the qualities you already possess and stripping away the signals that undermine them. Most people's confidence fails not because they lack value, but because they habitually communicate low status through small, unconscious behaviors. Change those behaviors and the perception of you changes instantly. There is one final element to performed confidence: scarcity of reaction. The most confident people do not react to everything around them. They choose their responses carefully. They do not fill silence with nervous chatter. They do not laugh too loudly at jokes to signal belonging. They do not rush to prove themselves. In every interaction, their stillness forces others to engage on their terms. This is why performed confidence is so potent. It teaches others how to treat you before you've even said a word. And once you've set that standard, people rarely lower it themselves. They either rise to it or remove themselves from your presence, both outcomes serving you. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew that the court, the council, and the crowd all bent toward the figure who appeared most certain. Not because certainty guaranteed correctness, but because uncertainty is magnetic in all the wrong ways. It attracts dominance from others. By performing confidence, you block those advances before they even begin. And when you do this consistently, something almost magical happens. You stop noticing that you're performing at all. The behaviors become second nature. The posture is no longer a stance you choose. It's simply the way you stand. The voice you once had to lower consciously becomes your default tone. The stillness you practiced in moments of provocation becomes your automatic response. This is when performed confidence fuses with real confidence. And from that moment on, you stop acting powerful. You are powerful. Not because the world crowned you, but because you crowned yourself, and everyone else eventually fell in line.